Hi, everyone. I'm Sage Hill, and you're listening to the Soulcial Sage podcast. I'd like to welcome you today. And for those of you who this may be your first time joining us, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, whether you're watching via YouTube or Spotify or listening via the Apple Podcast channel. I encourage you to become a regular listener so that you are notified when new episodes drop, as they do every week. I also encourage you to like this video if you've heard content that has inspired you in any way, shape, form, or fashion, or has caused you to think through things a little bit differently. And I also encourage you to share any suggestions of content that you would like to hear or topics that you have interest in learning more about. And I'll be happy to share an episode with that particular content topic in it. Today, I'm going to be talking about a subject that is really important to me. It's a topic that you hear me talk about quite often when I remind everyone that they are enough. Being enough in your own eyes is something that I think many of us struggle with. We have feelings that somehow we just don't quite measure up. Perhaps that feeling has come from past experiences. They could be experiences that you had when you were in school. It could have been some form of rejection, whether it came from someone in your family or whether it came from experiences not quite being the person that had a lot of friends in school. It could have come from a early relationship with another individual where that person didn't treat you the way you deserve to be treated and subsequently just removed themselves from your life, and that left you feeling some sort of way. All of those experiences that happen in our life, they add up. And over time, they leave imprints in our minds that make us feel sometimes less than worthy. We sometimes even question our own value. But this is where I want to help those of you who are struggling in this area to stop and reset your mindset when it comes to your worth. The reason that I speak over and over and over again into the atmosphere that you are enough just as you are is because that is one concept that when you come to grips with it, it will change your life. When you somehow feel that you don't measure up for any reason, when you are somehow lost in a sea of rejection, it causes you to second guess yourself. It causes you to isolate yourself. And in many instances, it creates a level of anxiety that is just this repeating pattern of thoughts that cause you to feel sometimes ashamed. Sometimes there's feelings of guilt. There are feelings of lack. And there are feelings that you just don't fit in somehow. And so it becomes easier to start retreating into yourself and becoming more introverted in how you go about your day-to-day life. Sometimes you can be in a room filled with people and still somehow feel alone. Still somehow have thoughts going through your mind that make you feel anxiety about just interacting with other people. Have you ever had a feeling when you're around others that um, other people are judging you, that they are somehow finding fault with you? And you go so far as to be able to identify the very things that you believe they're seeing or not seeing. When in fact, I would venture to say the opposite is true. You see, we live in a world where we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. And if we don't learn how to see the value in ourselves that we should see, we become stuck in this pattern of feeling less than, feeling somehow as though we don't measure up. And isn't it funny that while you're feeling that way, and while you're looking at others in the room and thinking how their lives appear so put together, how they um, express themselves in the world, it seems so perfect. In fact, sometimes even looking at those individuals and envying them for how they show up, when in fact, those very people are having the same thoughts. We often struggle as a society with self acceptance. And we struggle because there are so many images out there that we are bombarded with minute by minute, showing us these picture perfect lives on social media. When in fact, much of that content comes from just a small part of those individuals' lives. Sometimes it's not even happening in that moment. Perhaps they're putting up these facades of their lives to recapture a part of their lives that felt meaningful, a part of their lives where they experienced a level of happiness, and putting that out there when they're not feeling that or experiencing that makes them feel better. But we don't think about that. We just see people and begin comparing ourselves to them. We begin comparing our lives to their lives. And there's no comparison. So let's just go back in time for a moment, shall we? I want you to do me a favor. I want you to do yourself a favor. I want you to take this moment to invest in yourself. I want you to pause this video, pause this audio, depending on the channel that you're listening. And I want you to go and grab a pen and just grab a piece of paper. If you don't have a journal, watch my episodes on journaling, but just grab a piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to write down right now what you're afraid of. Whatever fears are deep down inside of you, but they're lingering to the point that they're holding you back from accepting yourself completely. Write down what you're afraid of. What do you fear? Do you fear that somehow others are judging you, as we just discussed? Do you fear that somehow people are going to uncover some fact about your life that isn't even relevant anymore? Are you afraid that people are saying negative things about you, or that they don't respect you or that they don't see you. Perhaps you fear not being heard. Perhaps you fear expressing yourself because doing so might expose you. Somehow, write down the things you fear. Now, after you've written down everything that you fear, I mean, write it down to the point that you're searching for those things that make you feel afraid. And when you no longer fear anything else that you can jot down, I want you to talk about what you resent. It doesn't have to be what you resent just in this moment. I want you to go back, look back over your life and write down those things that you resent, that you resented, and that still somehow have an impact in your life today. Everything that you resent. Can it be a person, you ask? Absolutely. But if you write down a person's name, you have to write down what it was that they did or that you felt they did to cause you to feel this level of resentment. Get it all out. Now we're going to change the pace just a little bit. I want you to look at everything that you've written down. I want you to take each and every item, whether it's a fear or your feelings of resentment, and I want you to see them. I want you to acknowledge them. And then I want you to release them. How do you do this? Everyone has a level of spirituality, regardless as to what it is you believe. There is a force that propels you in one way or another. I happen to be a spiritual person, and so if I'm writing these things down and I'm letting them go, I'm giving up all of these thoughts of rejection and resentment and fear. And I'm giving it over to that higher power. If you're a Christian, you give it over to God. If you are a person who your religion is Islam, you give it over to Allah. If you are a Buddhist, you release it. However you release this energy, I want you to write down specifically that I am not afraid. I am not afraid, and I release all of my fears. I release all of my resentment. I'm letting it go of my own free will because I want to move forward in my life. I accept the fact. In fact, I acknowledge and I accept that I am enough. Regardless as to who you feel wronged you or did not acknowledge you or did not hear you, you must now hear yourself. And if you don't have enough feelings of confidence within yourself, hear me. You are enough. You are a person who has come this far. You have made it through so many challenging times in your life. You've experienced some great moments. You've had some rough and challenging moments. You may have experienced trauma or some crises at many different instances in your life. But yet, here you are. And this is a precipice in your life. This is the moment that you get to decide. This is the moment that you get to choose how you continue to show up in this world, how you feel, not just in this moment, but in the remaining moments of your life. When you acknowledge that you are enough for you, to you, you are enough. When you begin to believe in yourself, you begin to exhibit to others a level of confidence and assurance. And no one will ever question your worth. Other people can only question your worth when you allow them to by questioning your own self-worth. Everyone is here for a reason and a purpose. When you find your purpose, then everything seems to come together. But it's when you're striving to find your purpose, that is when you get to know yourself. You get to see yourself as you evolve and grow into the person that you will ultimately become as you grab hold to the purpose for your life and you begin to walk in that purpose. I want you to know and understand your worth and that you are worthy. You're worthy to be respected. You're worthy to be heard. You are here and you're worthy to be seen. Stand up. Stand up in the acknowledgement of yourself. Stand tall, knowing that when you show up, other people are looking at you and they are envying you, just like you used to look at others and compare yourself to them. We all come here with gifts. Show the world the gift of you. Acknowledge to yourself that you are a gift and that you have so much good to share with this world. When you can do that, you can move out of that place of isolation. For you see, when we isolate ourselves, all that we're doing is allowing those negative perceptions and messages to repeat themselves over and over and over and over again. And we don't have any way to stop that messaging. We don't have any interrupters. That's why I walked you through the exercise of writing down your fears, writing down your resentments, and letting it go. I suggest that you do that every day. Every day. Because this is a journey. This is a journey to healing. It is a journey to getting to a point in your life where you can acknowledge to yourself that you have something unique and special to offer, and that because of that, you don't have to accept being treated as less than. You don't have to accept that. And when you get to that point, That is when you can begin setting and establishing boundaries in your life. Boundaries for how you're going to allow people to show up in your life, for how you're going to allow people to treat you or not treat you. And you can begin to clearly articulate the things that you accept as well as the things that you don't accept. And at some point, when you are comfortable and confident in having the ability to acknowledge your fears and address them, to acknowledge your resentments and address them, that is the starting point for being able to have those important conversations that you may need to have with individuals that you feel somehow did not value you or did not give you the things that you needed. And you can begin to let that go by speaking your truth and moving on. And you can begin giving yourself the love and the attention that you need. Sometimes I think we struggle with self-care because we don't understand what care feels like. And sometimes we don't understand what care feels like because we often reject care and instead focus on the fact that somewhere in our lifetime we feel like someone did not care for us enough. But I would be willing to wager that if you look back over your life, you're going to find people who did care. But sometimes we're so focused on the fact that we feel something is missing that we reject care that we could have received from others. Sometimes we have to have surrogate caregivers, people who can build us up and people who can breathe kind of life back in us, and people who can help us see ourselves for who we really are. Don't worry about the people who couldn't do that, but accept the people who can. And as you move towards the point where you can accept the care and the love from others, then you can begin to acknowledge the type of care that you really need, and you can accept it when it comes. Sometimes we keep gravitating towards people who don't care because we don't know how to receive care, because we had laser focus on the one person that could not give us what we needed. And we're constantly trying to we're reliving that moment over and over and over again, going after the wrong people while we push aside people that are really trying to show us that they do care, that they do love us. We have to learn how to break those patterns, because if we don't learn how to accept love, we will constantly be running in circles in search of what we've experienced, not what we received. And we have to learn how to receive. So we let go of those negative experiences so that we don't continue to repeat cycles of abandonment, of neglect, of feeling unworthy because of someone else's absence in our lives. Focus on those who focus on you. Accept their love, their care. Accept self-care. But if you don't acknowledge that there is and that there are people in this world who care for you, and that there is a reason for you to be loved. If you can't accept that, you're not going to be able to show yourself the self-care that you need. And we all need it. So today, you've learned a few things. You've learned to let go of your fears and how to do that, as well as your resentments. You've learned to acknowledge them and to release them. You've learned the importance of self-care. And you've learned that we often repeat what we didn't receive. And in order to be able to fully receive the abundance of love and care that is waiting for us, we have to let go of the past. I know it can be difficult, but you don't want to remain stuck in a cycle, repeating the same things over and over and over again, in search of something that others are willing to freely give because you're laser focused on something that didn't happen years ago. Let it go and release it. And when you do this, you will start to see yourself differently, and you'll start to see the world around you differently, and you can re-engage with the world again. Come out of isolation. And as you do so, you can say these 3 words. I am enough. Thank you for listening. I'm Sage Hill. This is the Soulcial Sage. And as always, it's been a pleasure, my treasures.